let's talk about this trash. He says he liberated women. I hope, if nothing else, that you get from this story that I'm about to get into, and you're a woman who dates men, please do not ever put yourself in a situation where you do not make money. This is why the whole trad wife thing, I hate this new trad wife. It's all like, blah. But this is one of the most, his former wife or whatever, who just came out with her memoir. This is honestly such a relatable story. Now, it's very extreme because, I did not live in a Playboy mansion, and I'm sure you did not either if you're watching this. But I cannot believe how relatable this story is, probably to every woman who's ever dated men. So Crystal Hefner just came out with this memoir. And just right out of the gate, I was like, okay, I'm going to love this. I had to play mind games to survive. Honestly, that's just every woman who lives in patriarchy is about. You play mind games with all these men, whether it's smiling at men you don't want to, saying nice things about them, anything to cater to their ego. All of us have to do this all the time. So right out of the gate, they described this bathroom that was attached to his bedroom. It was a black marble tub, black toilet, heavy curtains, whatever. It sounds gross. Sounds like a dungeon. And she said, this room sounds like a manifestation of the darkest parts of Hefner's mind. When Crystal moved into the mansion, she was one of 3 live-in girlfriends, and she became his third wife. But she was 26 when she became his third wife, and he was 86. 60-year age gap. That's absurd. Look at this. This man, this man is a monster. He's a monster. Look at this. So she had to work out which nights he expected schmegs because of his regular... Oh my God, I love this. Look at this. Because his regular dinner of 10 chicken noodle soup, crackers, and cheese. Oh my God. Basically, she knew which nights that she had to sleep with this man because he'd order a BLT that night. That's what I'm understanding here. He took so much Viagra, it made him deaf. Y'all, remind me to do a Viagra video because apparently that stuff was actually made to help us and then men hijacked it into their thing, but just found that out 2 days ago. Look at this. So he made them all use baby oil, which caused them to have recurring infections. Sorry, I'm sick. I hope you... That's why I'm talking weird. So she talked about these 2 lovebirds that lived in a cage. And honestly, this is the best metaphor for what it's like to be with the wrong man or just most men. She says there's these 2 birds, tiny and green, famously loyal. The problem was they kept dying. The staff would whisk away each little corpse and replace it with another one the following day. But neither Hefner nor the maid seemed curious about what was wrong. No one seemed to ask why they kept dying. They just would bring in a new one, bring it replaceable. Women are replaceable. These birds are replaceable. And this is such a good metaphor. Crystal was curious, do they have infections? Because the girls were always getting infections. Look at this. There was a bad bacteria buildup in the famous Grotto pools, which had caused an outbreak of this disease. I don't know how to say it. So that she asked, she's really drawn a connection between these birds and her, and it's perfect. Was it the lack of sunlight? What was it? And then she realized one day that the birds were dying for no reason other than that no one was giving them water. The birds had been dying of thirst this whole time, and the mansion staff just kept replacing bird after bird. This is not just for Hugh Hefner, y'all. This is women understand this. Women who have been married to men who just replace them with someone else. And those women come out of these marriages completely haggard. Their immune system is screwed. Haven't taken care of themselves because these men are parasites. They're vampires. And these birds, these beautiful birds. I mean, the fact that he had 2 birds caged in this dark room is so classic because so many of these men literally just want a shiny new toy, right? They want an independent, free spirit just so they can cage her or just so they can clip her wings, right? This is what men do to us. Not all men. Clearly, I'm married. I wouldn't be married if this man was doing this to me. He makes my life better. But in general, most men do this to us because they're parasites. So when Crystal moved into the mansion, she replaced Hefner's number 1 girlfriend. And the fact that Hefner just had to have so many women, this man is so insecure. This man is so insecure, and yet men still worship this guy. You know, even though he's got so many credible allegations of the worst things you can do to a human being, he's still like, oh, boo, boo. Look at this right here. She moved in soon after quitting her psychology degree for a different kind of education. She said, once you went in, it was so hard to find a way out. This man kept these women like hostages. And another reason why you shouldn't just get married to any man is because they will hold you hostage, especially if you don't have money, which is exactly why he did not let them make money. She recalls someone asking him at one point, do you think all these women are after you for your money? And he said, well, as long as they're after me. Hef was an extreme side of narcissism, so I truly believe that he thought everybody really wanted to be there, really enjoyed Schmegs, really enjoyed the old movies, loved literally everything that he enjoyed. She talks about how the mansion was like his friend's country club. They came and they got free buffet and staring at the girls. And basically it was just the Hef show. Doesn't surprise me. Now, for a long time, she only said good things. She cared for him. She brushed away any criticism. She built relationships with his 4 adult children. But now that, 6 years after his death, now that she's not in this prison, she's starting to realize that she was literally like a prisoner. So she's not the first person who's come out against him. This Carissa Shannon, who was only 18 when Crystal joined her, and her twin sisters in the mansion, and she'd had an abortion at 19 because he refused to use condoms. Can you imagine the audacity of this man who has all these girlfriends held hostage in the mansion and he won't use a condom? Notice that it's all teenagers that move into this. I swear to God, y'all, if there was not some sort of law against him being able to do this to women under 18, I guarantee you he would have had 13, 14, 15-year-olds in this mansion. I swear so many men are this close. And the only thing preventing them from having literal children in the mansion is the law. This one, Susie Kraback, I don't know how to say her name, who moved in at 18, said Hefner drugged and raped her. In Holly Madison's memoir, she wrote The Depths of Despair. She contemplated drowning herself in the bathtub. Now I'm going to tell y'all another example of one of his other girlfriends who still has that pick-me stuff going on and is like, they're all lying now. She talks about when she first got there, it was like Willy Wonka. Because I came from a world where I didn't have much, and this is exactly what these men do. They exploit really vulnerable women in vulnerable situations, whether it's poverty or who are really insecure, who have a lot of abuse and trauma in their background. She was only 12 when her dad died, leaving her and her mom pretty impoverished. So when she was invited to the Playboy party, she was struggling both financially and mentally and was like, why not? And because she'd seen people like Pamela Anderson there, looked powerful. They were loved. They belonged. So she thought this was a great opportunity when she moved in. And then shortly after, she says, the walls started to close in on me. I think that broken women gravitate towards something like that. I still don't understand why. I'm going back to school to study more psychology. The fact that this man had a 6 p.m. curfew, like he's like her literal daddy or granddaddy, and they were not allowed to work. I'm telling y'all, do not be with men who don't want you to work or won't allow you to work. You are a prisoner. This part right here, Hefner would make them queue up to receive their weekly allowance or gas money. So even when she was actually literally working and did a season of this show, The Girls Next Door, his production company received $400,000 per episode and she received nothing. So this dude is making them work, but literally will not pay them. So she talks about once she got promoted to being like the number one, she started wondering, how can this person really love me when they want 4 other people in the bed with us? Listen to the way she describes their weekly schmegs. Like it's a degrading chore. She says she's still grossed out today thinking about it. I did things that I wasn't comfortable with. I wasn't physically attracted to an 80-year-old man. I was just trying to get through it. And the other girls, nobody liked each other, but we'd just be there for Hef. So there's, again, that men will also triangulate you against anyone else so that instead of them seeing, oh, we're all stuck in this crazy situation with this psycho, they're all there to be, oh, Hef. So she soon realized, Crystal realized pretty quickly that there's no freedom in this mansion. Everything was based on Hef's schedule, and I never got a say. Hef's whole thing is like the Playboy, and he just liberated all these women. Schmegsley. No, the dude was like a narcissistic psycho who held all these women prisoner. And this is another thing. A lot of people, he was praised for his progressive politics. Even Jesse Jackson hailed him as a strong supporter of the civil rights movement. Larry King was like talking about free speech, blah, blah, blah. He was also known for animal rescue and the restoration of the Hollywood sign. Who cares about the Hollywood sign? I think it's hilarious that he liked to be known for being an advocate for animal rescue when the man literally was replacing birds in his bedroom and that were dying of thirst. Before we get back to Crystal's nightmare story, this is Hef was raised in a conservative Midwestern town. His mother wanted him to become a missionary, and he has a BA in psychology, a double minor in writing and art. Imagine the things this man could have done if he'd actually worked on himself instead of just tortured women. Look at this. The most devastating moment of his life is when his first wife had an affair while he was away. I swear to God, y'all, men will be like, yeah, this one woman hurt me, and then use that to justify everything that they do terrible against women forever. As if women haven't been traumatized by men again and again and again and again, and we still continue to deal with them. But the most devastating thing in his life was that his wife had an affair while he was in the army. Great. So then he spends the rest of his life torturing women to get back at her? Bro. So his ex-wife allowed him to have schmegs with other women out of guilt of her own infidelity in hopes that it would preserve their marriage. But it didn't, of course. They divorced. Is this his, origin story of being evil? Was his wife had an affair once while he was oh my God. I also didn't know this. He's a distant relative of the Bushes. Oh, that makes sense. So, he's known for all of this political activism and, charitable crap. He was given the First Amendment Award in his effort to protect free speech. This was never about free speech. This is about a man who probably was just I want to be able to schmegelize women. That's free speech. Again, I made that video about Robert De Niro yesterday. These men, these progressive men, are just awful. They're awful. Look, he donated and raised money for the Democratic Party. He supported Barack Obama, all the things that we like progressive men to do. But he held women hostage in his mansion and raped multiple people. Oh, look, charitable foundations, blah. He also, much love animal rescue. Again, this is the man who killed his birds. But look at this. He anti-vaccination campaign. But remember when Jenny McCarthy did that crap? This is the OG anti-vaxxer. Of course he's an anti-vaxxer. He made women wear baby oil and they had continuous infections. And he's like, what? I know more than science. He supported same-sex marriage. Yay! Still a rapist. And this whole thing, everything. He doesn't want us to go back to the earlier puritanical time. But dude, what you are doing, your schmegsual liberation, is literally in line with the puritanical crap. That's what drives me crazy about this guy. So many progressive men. He still just wanted to control women. He still saw women in the Madonna binary. He did not see women as full human beings, or he would not have had schmegs slaves in his freaking mansion. Don't think that just because a man is kind of leftist or progressive, that he isn't just as bought into purity culture as the men on the right. But then they just want to benefit from women's schmegsual liberation, but they still don't see us as human beings. Because at the end of the day, he is a man, as this woman wrote in The Guardian, who bought and sold women to other men. Hands down. That's what he did. And basically his whole business model was to make the selling of female flesh respectable and hip. And as this woman wrote in The Independent, he caused immeasurable damage by turning corn, therefore the buying and selling of women's bodies, into legitimate business. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that entirely. I don't think there's anything wrong with Schmeg's work. But Hugh, and I actually very much respect Schmeg's workers. It's the oldest business in history. But the way that Hugh Hefner tried to push his own agenda and his own exploitation of women out into the mainstream and liberate women, no thanks, bro. Let us liberate ourselves. We don't need you for that. Because the way this man treats the women in his life and in that mansion is very much so the way he sees women, all women. And GLAAD, if you know what GLAAD is, it's a nonprofit organization, and I love their work, says that Hefner was not a visionary, but a misogynist who built an empire on schmegulizing women. So it wasn't really until Hefner died that people really started to take him down. And also Me Too hit Hollywood in 2017. And then these conversations became more mainstream. Remember, Me Too's been around a long time. It just hit Hollywood in 2017, just in case people didn't know that. This is who we should always give credit to, not Alyssa Milano. So she talks about how he used to pat her on the head and tell her to dye her roots. He would loudly compare the girlfriends' bodies. He encouraged plastic surgery and would play them against each other. Again, the classic triangulation. And she started to realize after a while that this is all about power. It's all power for an insecure king baby narcissist. But look at this. This pissed me off. I did not know this until yesterday. Poor Marilyn Monroe. She's already got a creep who is buried facing her for the rest of her life. But now she's got Hugh Hefner next to her. I did not know this either, but Hefner owes his success to Monroe. At 27, he launched Playboy with a naked photograph of her without her consent. This is how he started. Was already with, this man does not believe in consent. I swear to God, I need to do a video on Marilyn Monroe. What men did to her. She said, so back to Chris, he proposed offering a ring in a music box that played The Little Mermaid, which, she compares to basically agreeing to be with this man was like trading her voice. So she talks about being this transactional relationship that all the women had with him. And once you went into his orbit, because the men, again, this is a king baby who thinks he's the sun and all women just orbit around him. You went into your orbit offering all of yourself and you had no idea what you get back. Maybe you get a Playboy spread, maybe you get fame or just gas money. So I talked about this yesterday with Robert De Niro about how a lot of men, they see giving you things as them being generous. But she's like, power is insidious, and when it masks itself as generosity, and generosity is insidious when it's camouflaging control. She even tried to run away at one point, especially after not getting paid for all that work she did on that show. She said that, but she tried to run away, but crossing the driveway, she heard his voice boom over the mansion loudspeaker, detain her. That's when the lights went off. I was like, okay, my feelings don't matter. She apparently tried to escape one more time, telling the guard she was going out to buy tampons. Then when she returned, she ended up getting punished by being on the cover of an issue called Runaway Bride. She was also sick. Now, again, whenever you're with men like this, they make you sick. She was sick with Lyme disease. Now, obviously, he didn't give that to her. Breast implant illness. And then toxic mold exposure. Because, again, this nasty house was full of bacteria. And, God, the mansion was literally killing her. She said the schmeg stopped in 2014 and life became easier. She took out the implants, stopped dyeing her hair, and transitioned to the role of carer. She also found a shoebox full of Polaroids. Apparently this dude carried a camera around all the time and just took pictures of them all the time. He carried around a disposable camera with him and took photos of women everywhere. We were disposable too. Rolls and rolls of potential blackmail if he ever wanted to use it that way. This is a cult, y'all. This man is a cult leader. You know, all cults, they always get some sort of dirt on you so that you're terrified of leaving. This man, God. She described him as being like a broken little boy just trying to fill his void. The same thing I say about all these men who want to climb Everest and stuff too, y'all. It's like addiction. This man is addicted to power and women. Some men are adrenaline junkies or literally, alcoholics and stuff, trying to overcompensate for a childhood that they didn't really have any love. So again, Hugh Hefner was like an insecure little boy who needed constant reassurance from mommy or any women, right? He was good at getting women to surround him and creating the illusion that he was not alone. I'm telling you, these men are so afraid of being alone. That's why it's always projection when they're like, you're going to die alone. No, you're going to die alone. And you have to pay women to hang out with you. But in reality, he was very lonely. Again, yeah, because you don't see women as human beings. So you have them around you, surrounding you to hide behind them. But if you hate yourself, you're never going to feel like not alone. She said he would watch movies like love stories and he would just cry and cry. And she calls being around him like Stockholm Syndrome. When you start to have feelings for your captor, what made it harder with him was that there was so much power and celebrity around, which definitely masked the pain. When everybody was going along with something, it's hard to mentally pull away. I played mind games with myself to try to survive, like we all do. Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, blah, blah. She said her mom tried to convince her to leave. And she would say, I can't. He needs me. So she stayed till the very end. That's exactly what happened to me with that narcissist abuser I was with. The thing that made me so afraid to leave him was because he needed me. I'm not joking. Like, I hated him. I hated his guts. You know, he'd raped me multiple times. He'd hurt me physically. He'd done all this stuff. He was literally a nightmare. But that's what happens with these men, these insecure men. The longer you're in their orbit, the more you feel bad for them because you know they're just lonely and broken. And so you feel like, what is going to happen to them if I leave? Stop worrying about them. I literally almost died staying with a man because I thought he needed me. He didn't need me. He didn't need me because we can't save these men from themselves. We can distract them from themselves, but we cannot save them from ourselves. And we are like those birds in his cage, dying of thirst, but pretty to look at. We're replaceable. These men will always find someone to replace you. They don't care about you. Do not stay because they need you. Do not. That is where we end up fighting ourselves the most, is that they need us. No. This is so relatable, especially if you've ever been in one of these relationships. I don't know why, but it makes me angry to think about it. Why did I feel sorry for someone who messed me up mentally? But I don't know. Like, God, this is like the hardest thing for me to do is forgive myself for being in this relationship. Like, why did I care so much about this guy who was destroying me? Oh, that self-betrayal. So she says the reason why she wrote this book is to help other people who are in relationships that are confusing and maybe emotionally abusive with men with hard personality. She's like, it's not even about Hugh Hefner. It's like hoping that women will identify with, if they identify with this, that they'll start to realize that they're in an abusive relationship, basically. And the mind games that you go through that help them survive temporarily. Tell me that a lot of women in marriages don't feel this right here. You don't have to be in a Playboy mansion to feel this. It was all harming me psychologically. It's tough knowing your opinion doesn't matter. And you question your value. You don't feel worthy because people lead you to believe that you'd be nothing without them. These kind of men will lead you to believe that you're nothing without them. When really they're the ones who are nothing without you. And yet still, like, they're destroying you. You can't save them. She said, seriously, this is what I hear from so many women who get out of awful marriages. So she moved out. When she moved out, she found relationships challenging. I realized maybe being there affected me more than I realized. You know, I'm like almost, 10 years out of that abusive relationship, and I'm still realizing how much it impacted me. 10 years later, I'm like, oh my God. So like someone tried to set her up with a matchmaker, and they're like, what are your hobbies? And she was speechless. She was like, what do I like? She felt blank. These kind of men are so exhausting that you lose yourself. And especially if you have children with these men, everything is about the children and these king babies. And that's why a lot of women, when they get out of these relationships, because a lot of times these men leave you anyway, and they're in their 40s or 50s, and they don't even know themselves. You can't when you're attached to men like this. She says she's still trying to figure out who she is. She actually hates celebrity culture in general, and I agree with this. This is exactly what, Matthew Perry is another example of this. I think it's empty. I feel people chase it because they have some kind of void they're trying to fill, and then once they get it, they're angry because it doesn't fix them. This is exactly what happened to Matthew Perry. She finds people like Andrew Tate even scarier than Hugh Hefner. I'm not sure I'd agree with that, but she does say that he wasn't necessarily an aggressive person, but I think he chose women who were broken and easily manipulated. I would argue that Hefner's worse than dictate. Because again, like so many men on the left, they think they're progressive. They think they just respect women when all they do is use women. Their idea of like liberating women is purely just schmegully, nothing else. This relationship was a job. So this is one of my favorite parts. She's explaining what it's like to get allowance on Fridays. They would get their allowance and they're supposed to spend their money on clothes or whatever beauty maintenance or accessories were needed in order to be presentable at the Playboy mansion. So they all go down the hallway on Fridays, and be like, "Can we have our allowance, please, Hef?" She said they would coo in unison in a sing-songy girly tone. Tell me this man is not They sounded like teenage daughters asking their father for spending money. But in fairness, they were only 18, so they are teenagers. Everything was a performance with this man. And if you've ever had a narcissist man in your life, especially, or a narcissist, but a man like this, it was obvious that asking was yet another performance to please him and to remind us of our dependence on his generosity. Hef played his part, the benevolent benefactor. It was obvious that he enjoyed it. And he realized that being asked and wanted to linger in that moment where he had the upper hand and had to be like, should I give you your allowance? And the girls are like, "Please, Hef, can we have our allowance?" And he's like, "Okay." So then, this was literally like a play. Of course, he'd say, with a fake surprise as though he needed to be reminded. Theatrically, he pulled out his velvet pouch and would just start doling out fresh $100 bills, which, one of his assistants, the office lady, restocked he had somebody paying to restock this so he could do this stupid routine. And he would slowly count them out deliberately. One. He seemed to take a long time on purpose, laying down each bill, neatening the stack. He made us wait. And wait we did, hands clasped like little girls. I felt terrible, like a hugger. Hot shame rose inside me, my cheeks burning, and a little voice in me that whispers, "What are you doing?" And that's that intuition, y'all. That part of you that knows you don't deserve this. And then she pushed that voice away, and then he gave her money. It was demoralizing on purpose. It was infantile. But since we couldn't work outside the home, it was our only source of income. How much you want to bet a lot of these tried wives are having to do, "Can I have money to go get a pedicure?" This is what these men want. It's about power, y'all, and demoralizing and infantilizing the women that they're married to. She said she sometimes imagined just throwing the money back at him. "I don't need your money." And then walk away. But I did need it. If I didn't have any cash, I wouldn't have gas money and I'd never be able to leave the house. And Hef was careful not to give us too much. And he watched to make sure that we spent it on what we were supposed to be spending it on and not building any kind of nest egg. Again, this is why all liberation is about access to resources and money. You cannot have liberation without that. And I'm not just talking about in feminism. She started to realize that this was not a relationship this was a job. My job was to perform. I performed on his TV show, for his friends and guests, and for him in the bedroom. She even talks about how the schmegs never changed. This dude was boring. He'd do the same thing. He'd come in his silk pajamas. He'd have 4 big television screens with the same old corn reels. And he'd get the baby oil, despite them all having infections. They even tried to replace it with lube at some point because they were tired of getting infections. And he got rid of the lube and always wanted baby oil. He even kept a doctor on retainer who would come and give them antibiotics. That's how much these women were getting sick from forking this dude. But then, of course, there's always going to be a pick-me who comes out. So one of his ex-wives is pissed that she just wrote this. So his second wife is slamming those who speak their version of their idea of the events in hopes of writing a wave of headline relevance and make a quick buck. Yeah. That's okay. She feels compelled to speak out on behalf of someone I love who's no longer able to defend himself, basically. You know why she's doing this? Because she had kids with this dude. She sounds like a Tate person here. So these women refuse to take accountability. They chose to be there. They're just trying to destroy this thing because they're no longer benefiting from it. And they'll never be held accountable. If you want to talk about exploitation, that's what she's doing. Not all men are Hugh Hefner. Most act like him.